Modernism is one of the most transformative movements in American and world literature. This presentation is based on two critics, Anton Pokrivčák's American Literature of the 20th Century, Modernism and After, and Arnold Weinstein's Classics of American Literature lectures. These critics help us understand modernism's historical context, defining features, and cultural significance. We'll explore how modernism arose out of the devastation of World War I, how it challenged all the traditions of realism and naturalism, and how it introduced radically new ways of writing. By focusing on the critics' perspectives, we can see modernism as both a response to historical trauma and as a bold experiment in form, style, and vision. It is the movement that redefined literature for the 20th century, insisting that art must reflect the fragmented, unstable reality of the modern world. This cover image is Kandinsky's composition number 8, whose abstract geometry and fragmentation visually echo modernism's rejection of order and its embrace of experimentation. Throughout the presentation, we'll also look at other modernist artworks and photographs by Picasso, Strand, O'Keeffe, Mondrian, Léger, and others that will visually capture the same fragmentation, disorientation, and experimentation that critics describe in literature. Anton Pokrivčák defines modernism as an international movement that reshaped art and literature in the early 20th century. It was not limited to America. It was part of a broad cultural revolution that included European avant-garde art, music, and philosophy. The decisive event that gave modernism its urgency was World War I. The unprecedented destruction of the war shattered faith in tradition, authority, and stability. People lost confidence in old narratives that had organized society, religion, nation, progress, morality. Modernist writers sought new ways of expressing a reality that felt fragmented, chaotic, and unstable. As Pokrivčák notes, modernism broke away from realism and naturalism. Rather than representing reality with accuracy, it questioned whether reality could ever be represented at all. Its hallmarks include subjectivity, fragmentation, and relentless experimentation. Modernism insists that literature must reflect not certainty, but doubt and instability. This strange photograph reminds us of the devastation of World War I, which Pokrivčák identifies as the catalyst for modernism's break with older tradition. Pokrivčák emphasizes that the historical context of modernism is crucial. World War I produced devastation on a scale that destroyed confidence in older values. The certainties of the 19th century, faith in progress, morality, and reason, collapsed in the trenches of Europe. The war created widespread disillusionment, which modernist literature captured. At the same time, rapid industrialization, urban growth, and technological innovation transformed everyday life. The new rhythms of the city, speed, noise, and fragmentation, entered modernist style. American writers such as T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and Gertrude Stein were influenced by European modernists like James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, and they adapted those innovations to American context. For Pokrivčák, modernism is both a historical response to trauma and a cultural experiment driven by the shock of a new century. It represents a radical break from the past and a search for new forms of meaning. Picasso's three musicians, shown here, captures modernism's embrace of fragmentation and abstraction, breaking down figures into bright geometric forms that defy traditional representation. Pokrivčák highlights several features that distinguish modernist writing. First, fragmentation. Narratives are broken, discontinuous, refusing the neat coherence of earlier literature. Second, the stream of consciousness technique. Writers attempt to capture the flow of thought and perception with shifting perspectives and interior monologues. Third, ambiguity. Modernist works resist resolution. They often end openly, leaving meaning undecided, demanding that readers participate in interpretation. Fourth, self-consciousness. Modernist literature reflects on itself, drawing attention to the act of writing, the limits of language, and the instability of meaning. These features express the sense that reality itself is fractured and unstable. For Pokrivčák, modernism represents not just a stylistic shift, but a fundamental change in the role of literature. Literature no longer claims to present a stable world. It exposes instability, uncertainty, and the complex subjectivity of human experience. Strand's photograph of Wall Street, shown here, captures tiny, faceless figures dwarfed by looming architecture, a visual metaphor of modernism's alienation and fragmentation. Arnold Weinstein framed modernism as the shock of the new. For readers, modernist literature often feels difficult, disorienting, and strange. This is deliberate. Modernism insists that old forms are inadequate to new realities. Just as the war and the modern city shattered old certainties, literature had to shatter old conventions. For Weinstein, modernism is experimental. Literature becomes a kind of laboratory where new forms are tested. Writers reject traditional plots, stable characters, and clear resolutions, replacing them with fragmentation, montage, and ambiguity. This can feel unsettling, but it is central to the movement's purpose. Modernism's difficulty is not a flaw, but a way of forcing readers to confront the fractured reality of the modern world. Weinstein emphasizes that the strangeness of modernism mirrors the strangeness of the 20th century itself, a world transformed by war, technology, and dislocation. Léger's painting, The City, reflects the dynamism and chaos of urban modernity, symbolizing the broader cultural significance of modernism as a movement. Weinstein identifies the major themes of modernist literature. One is alienation. Characters often feel isolated, cut off from community, unable to connect. Another is loss and despair. The war and modernity created a sense of meaninglessness, which literature confronts directly. Modernist texts portray the collapse of old values and the struggle to find new ones. Another theme is the subjectivity of time and perception. Novels explore how time is experienced internally rather than chronologically, how memory reshapes reality, and how identity itself is fragmented. Weinstein emphasizes that literature becomes a response to the crisis of modern life. It doesn't offer solutions, but it stages the experience of fragmentation and doubt. In this way, modernism embodies the uncertainty of its age while searching for new forms of meaning in art itself. Duchamp's nude descending a staircase startled viewers with its fractured depiction of movement, embodying the shock and disorientation that Weinstein describes as central to modernism. Both Pokrivčák and Weinstein stress that modernism is defined by its experimental style. Writers experimented with language and form in unprecedented ways. Imagism, for example, aimed to capture sharp, clear images in poetry, stripping away ornament. Symbolism added layers for hidden meaning. The interior monologue explored consciousness directly, while montage and juxtaposition presented fragments side by side without explanation. Shifting voices and perspectives made text unstable, constantly questioning what can be known. Literature became self-aware. Modernist texts often call attention to their own artifice, reflecting on the difficulty of communication and the instability of meaning. For these critics, these techniques represent the essence of modernism, a refusal of old forms and a commitment to experimentation, capturing the fractured, uncertain experience of the modern world. O'Keeffe's Radiator Building, Night, New York, as shown here, reflects the alienation and wonder of the modern city, visually paralleling the themes of fragmentation and loss that Weinstein identifies. Pokrivčák and Weinstein both emphasized the broader significance of modernism. It was international, a transatlantic movement that connected American writers with European counterparts. It marked a decisive break with the traditions of the 19th century, realism and naturalism, and redefined the very purpose of literature. Instead of reflecting stability, literature became a record of instability, fragmentation, and doubt. For Weinstein, this transformation made literature central to understanding the 20th century. Modernism thought that art could no longer assume universal truths, but had to question truth itself. In this sense, modernism paved the way for later movements, including postmodernism, which would take skepticism and self-reflexivity even further. The significance of modernism lies in its boldness. It forced literature to evolve, to experiment, and to reflect the reality of a world forever changed by war, modernity, and disillusionment. Mondrian's composition with red, blue, and yellow, shown here, demonstrate modernism's radical experimentation with form, reducing art to pure structure, much like modernist writers experimented with language. To conclude, modernism was a response to the crisis of the 20th century, especially the devastation of World War I and the dislocation of modern life. It is defined by fragmentation, subjectivity, experimentation, and self-consciousness. Pokrivčák highlights its historical context and formal features, fragmentation, ambiguity, and innovation, while Weinstein emphasizes its themes of alienation, loss, and the shock of the new. Together, these critics show that modernism redefined literature itself, rejecting old certainties and embracing new forms to capture the instability of the modern world. Modernism was not just a style, but a worldview. It insisted that literature must reflect the fractured, unstable reality of its time. Its importance lies in its lasting impact, as it set the stage for the literary experiments and debates that would shape the entire 20th century. The Bauhaus exhibition poster shown here reflects the international reach of modernism, where literature, art, and design all shared an experimental drive to redefine culture.